Talk about. Hopefully you can hear us loud and clear because the Philadelphia Union kicked off 2024 with a 3-2 score in leg one in the CONCACAF Champions Cup matchup against Deportivo Saprissa. Welcome to PHOI Union Podcast. Tyler Zulli, JP Zapata, Renee Washington, Provolo and John first in the chat. Spiral out. Nice to have you both here. Hit that thumbs up button. Listen, the Union kicked off 2024 in style, some can say. There were a lot of things. Glad you can hear us loud and clear, Provolo and John. We appreciate you guys so much. Now, here's the thing. The way that 2024 kicked off, we saw goals. We saw a comeback. We saw great saves. We saw great plays. We saw a lot, JP. Before we even get into the nitty-gritty and the nuts and bolts of how leg one went down, what are your initial thoughts overall on the first 9 official stretch of play that we've seen from the Union?
Yeah, welcome to Union Soccer in 2024. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Look, I think if anyone expected the Union to start off this game with your vintage 2022 7-goal match, I think you were just thinking a little bit too highly. So in this match, I expected some rust. We got a little bit too much in that first half, especially defensively. But overall, this attack, that's one thing we questioned, right? The attack, how would it look? Obviously, it looked stale at times last year. And I saw a lot of the similar things as far as attacking, but they look cohesive. And, of course, it always helps, Renee, when you have Julian Carranza, who had an absolute stellar performance, especially in the second half, gets a hat trick to start off the year. Are you kidding me?
Oh, baby.
We're all thinking now, all right, so Ernst, how much are we selling? We getting 10 mil? We getting 15 mil? What are we at right now with Julian Carranza? But I think overall, you should be extremely proud of what they did down there. It's not easy to go down there, as Jim alluded to. It was raining. It made it very difficult out there. And when you add the rust to that as well, I thought they looked really good. And you come back home with 3 goals on the road. That gives you a nice little cushion. You take care of business where they typically do in Subaru Park. But there's a lot to, I think there's way more here to be proud of than to be upset about, because I think overall this was a good performance.
Definitely. There's a lot to unpack. We'll definitely get our chance to deep dive into the game. Of course, later on, just to give you guys a heads up, not only are we looking back at Tuesday's game, but we're looking ahead because it is going to be the home opener on Saturday. That's right, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time at Subaru Park. The Union kicked things off for MLS play going up against the Chicago Fire. So we're going to have from our sister station, CHGO, the Chicago Fire host over there. Alex Campbell is going to be joining us later on in the show. We have some updates just around the team. So Jillian, Provolone, Spiral out, everybody that's tuned in, hit that thumbs up button, join the conversation, share your thoughts, because there's a lot here, as you mentioned, positive that you can take away. Let's just talk about the elephant in the room. I know we've talked about it on social media. We've talked about it off the show. Haven't had a chance to talk about it on the show. So I feel like you got to get it out the way because, as we know, it was rainy. It was windy down there in Costa Rica. It was absolutely a very loud environment. And for our first game, we expected to see some cobwebs that need to be shaken off. We expect to see some rust, some mistakes, some errors. I was not expecting to see a 45-yard goal that Jacob Glesnes scored on Andre Blake.
You just scores for us, not against us.
So here's the wild thing. Here's the wild thing. I was very much adamant in our show last week, and the main thing I kept saying is I expect anything. We could see a lot of goals. We might not see any goals. It could be 1-1. It could be 1-0. I had no idea what to expect. This was definitely not on my game one bingo card. That Jacob Glesnes, and what could have and should have been a simple pass back, bombed it back, overhits it back to Andre Blake. The bounce is awkward. Of course, I know Jim was talking about post-game. It was windy, which he's like, it's not an excuse, but you can blame some wind there. But at the end of the day, that was kind of the moment of I feel like whenever you're getting started and there's jitters and nerves and all these emotions, sometimes you need that one moment that just kind of that, okay, and we're done, and we're ready to go, and that's it. And I feel like that play, for as egregious and rough as it was to watch, I do feel like that moment was the time where it was you know what? there it is. You expect something early on in the season. You get that mistake out of the way. Not going to happen again. And now we're moving forward. It can only, and I tweeted out this too, like, it can only go up from here. It can only go up from here. We made the mistake. We're back. We're ready to go. Shake it off. Move forward. But it was very encouraging to see the fact 3 second-half goals by Julian Carranza. And the best part about those goals, JP, I'm going to actually let you guess. What do you think I like most about these goals? We talk all the time on this show. Barbara Carroll, nice to have you here as well. What's up, Broad J Ford, I think is how you say yours. Broad F J. Oh, I reversed it. Broad F Jord, excuse me. If you guys watch enough, you know there are probably some main things, and one in particular as to why I liked the 3 goals the Union scored.
If I had to guess,
can you read my mind?
You do like build-up play, and I thought all 3 of these goals had some great build-up. A couple great assists here. I think Kai had 2 of the assists on the crosses there, but at the build-up play, I would assume that's what you like there.
You know me so well.
Ding, ding, ding,
so
ding, ding.
I love the fact that for the goals, it was ping, ping, ping goal. Kai Wagner was involved in the first one. You had Daniel Gazdag, Quinn Sullivan. We got to talk about Quinn Sullivan, of course.
Wow.
Quinn Sullivan involved. It was so many different pieces. It was quick transition, quick movements, and it was like without thinking. There were no thinking, wasted touches. They were moving the ball so well. The second 2 goals especially where, for Julian, and we'll talk about him specifically too, you just have to run through it and finish. Like, they teed it up so nicely for him. They set him up. He was able to just finish his run. And then also in each of those plays, when I watch them back again, you see multiple guys making runs and moving for each other. They're getting into the box. They're putting themselves into scoring positions. That's what I've been preaching that I want to see. So I love the fact that the Union scored not only 3 goals in the second half, but 3 great team goals that were a buildup, that were possession, that were combining to break down Saprisa's back line.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about this attack. So obviously we know that on the left-hand side, Kai's always going to provide that attack from the width. So that's always one thing that we always know with this team. So throughout the past couple of years, one thing that's always been in question is kind of that shuttle play, that connection between the back line to the front line that is so important from both number 8s, your left and your right-hand side, which on Tuesday, it was Jack McGlynn and Quinn Sullivan, your 2 youngsters. That to me, again, the Union always plays a cohesive unit. The chemistry was extremely evident on Tuesday night. But to me, those guys really cemented themselves as those shuttlers. Right. And especially, let's start off with Quinn, because Quinn probably, besides Julian Carranza, was the best player on the night. Renee, Quinn, Gazdag, and Carranza, like that to me was like the recipe for success on Tuesday night. A lot of those goals, you saw the connection between those 3 guys. But specifically, you criticized Daniel Gazdag in the playoffs.
I did.
And so I think that Gazdag and Quinn did a great job. And, in turn as well with Jack. Well, I'll get to that in a second. But they did a great job of feeding off of each other, knowing when Gazdag drops down low to hold up play. Quinn would step up in the attack, and that supplemented Gazdag's spot, that understanding on the pitch. I saw a lot of great interchanging plays as well with McGlynn and Gazdag as well. So you see that cohesive unit, you see that build-up play. I think that's what really boded well to it. And obviously when Carranza is on like the way he was on Tuesday night, you're going to get a hat trick, you're going to get a performance like that. But, we talked about before this year, what's Quinn's position? That's one of the big question marks because he's one of these young players, you see the talent. Renee, I think he's married himself to this position. And if that's the case, I think this bodes really well because you got McGlynn, who's great in the back and creating that play from the back. Whereas Quinn is so active in the attack in that final third. That's really where he bodes well. So I don't know, Renee. I think we got our shuttle midfielders here.
Listen, I've been saying one of the main areas the Union needed to make some sort of adjustment in their lineup was you had to have that true attacking personality in the midfield. And we're seeing the evolution of Jack McGlynn. We're seeing the evolution of Quinn Sullivan and the runs that he's making. I mean, the goals that he's a part of, I guess it was the second goal when he made that deep run forward, or the third goal. He makes the high run forward, is the highest player on the attack. That's what you want from your middies. Your midfielders should be the ones that are stretching your offense, that are making runs, because your forwards are checking, they're occupying the back four. Your midfielders are the ones that should be roaming and just going. And Quinn does that. He does that so well. And I think what works perfectly around this combination is the fact that you have Quinn who will just go. You will have Jack, who's more of the possession guy, and then you have Daniel, who really just wants to play 1 and 2 touches. He's like wall ball. He wants you to just knock it to him. He keeps it moving from there. So the 3 of them in the attack, and then of course you have Jose balancing, and you have someone like Jesus Bueno who can come into the match, Ali who can come into the match. But I think it gives you more personnel in your midfield that's different. So I do like the fact that Quinn has been playing so aggressive, and honestly was a big reason why the attack looked good. Not to mention, as you hit on, JP, this team does have the cohesion. And I think for me, although many may be frustrated that the Union did not do more in the offseason, when you look at the fact that this team is running it back with so many of the same players, and jumping right back into meaningful CONCACAF Champions Cup game against a Deportivo Saprissa team who's already been playing games, you don't have time to have, those early season rust and jitters and figuring each other out. So for the Union, I think actually running it back with the way their schedule is works perfectly well. It allows them to just pick up right where they left off. They can continue from where things ended last year and pick up here without having that, time period. Their starting 11 is the same group. Obviously, Quinn's worked himself in, which I love. But their starting 11's all returning players, but talented returning players. And you still have Marcus Anderson and Jesus Bueno and different guys that can come off the bench. So I'm excited for the fact that they did start off this way. I love that in a loud, crowd, a huge environment that they have down in Costa Rica, that they were able to play composed too. I think that was one of the other things that I noticed, aside from the attacking movement, was the composure. And in the beginning part, rightfully so, you didn't get that. It seems very, some of the defending on set pieces, defending in the run of play, some of the transition opportunities seems very jumbled and forced and rushed. But as the game progressed, you saw the Union start to open things up and just play much more composed, letting the ball do the work, talking to each other, and just settling into a nice groove. So even that type of play and style so early, JP, I appreciate it. That was great to see.
There's been a lot of talk about what to expect from this team, and I've heard a different range of answers of what they expect the Union to do this year. But the one thing that is evident, and we learned here on Tuesday night, no matter where we're at with this team, if it's early on the season or later on the season, it's a resilient bunch.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that first goal, which is so uncharacteristic for both Glesnes and Blake, for that to happen, obviously it's easy to get down on yourself. But obviously, Jim is a mastermind with halftime adjustments and just understanding his players and knowing what to say. So I don't know what he said in that locker room at halftime, but they responded fully in that second half, and that's when you saw the 3-goal eruption there as well. I want to talk about real quick, because before we move on from the midfield, McGlynn's ability to not shy away from defense and physicality was something that I really noticed, especially in that first half. Being able to help Kai Wagner and Luis Diaz, a solid wing player. Not the Lucho Diaz from Colombia, but Luis Diaz, he's obviously got some speed out there. And so Jack not being shy away. And the thing is like, Jack, there's been opportunities before, because of youth, he would shy away from that. But Jack, you're a big boy. Get on Luis Diaz. Make it a little bit difficult here for him. So I definitely was loving seeing Jack McGlynn not shy away from that. And another thing that I also did love was the fact that on Tuesday night, with the Union back, I decided, you know what, it's time, I'm going to have myself a beer. So you know what I chose, ladies and gentlemen? I chose Coors Light for my viewing pleasures here on Tuesday night. Because, look, I know it's a Tuesday night, but it's the first game back, so let's celebrate. So I chose a Coors Light over some of my favorite craft beers because it's a little bit lighter. I still had to work the next day, and it was extremely refreshing. And make sure that can is blue here, ladies and gentlemen, as well. So thank you here to our sponsor here for PHLY Union, Coors Light. Definitely make sure next time you guys are having a beer night with the boys or girls, definitely make sure to check and choose Coors Light as well. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, head on over to CoorsLight.com/PHLY soccer. Again, that is CoorsLight.com/PHLY soccer. You can have Coors Light delivered straight to your door.
Love it.
You know how easy that is? Order it right through online, get it delivered right to your door. You don't have to go to the beer store anymore, ladies and gentlemen. So again, that's CoorsLight.com/PHLY soccer. Thank you to our dear friends over at Coors Light.
And I also want to give a big thank you to our friends over at Mortgage CS, because Mortgage CS, which stands for Concierge Service, gives you a white glove service located right here in Philadelphia. And if you're not located in Philadelphia, don't worry, they are licensed coast to coast. They work with various states around the country: California, Virginia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, they're down with South Carolina, all over the map, that they are working to make sure to educate and empower their clients. And at Mortgage CS, they really do a good job of providing you not only 24/7 customer service, where you can reach out to them any time of day, morning, afternoon, night, email, text, call. They will always answer and be able to support you. And you can reach out to their CEO, Ben. His phone number right here on your screen, 267-391-7425. You can also reach out via email, ben@mortgagecs.com. Ben and Alec over at Mortgage CS do a tremendous job of just making sure to help that they can provide their clients with ultra competitive rates. They want you to have exceptional customer service, great competitive rates, and their top priority is your financial picture, not their bottom line. And in addition to the work they do to help on the house hunting side, they also will help with refinancing options. So if you're interested, they've got rate and term refinances for a rate payment reduction or cash out refinances. They've got those options that they can tap into, where they can provide you insight onto how to get home equity, how to make those smart choices for high interest debt or funding home projects. And they just help with the education, the knowledge, the support to make sure that you are feeling guided every step along the way. So with the spring purchase market almost here and heating up quickly, a lot of clients out there, first-time home buyers looking for their dream house, looking to maybe do a home project, are looking for help. And Mortgage CS will do that for you. They'll make sure to get you prepped, make sure to get you supported, and make sure you get you ready so that you can stand out amongst and make the strongest offers possible amongst the others. So when you hear the word mortgage, think of Mortgage CS, think of Ben and Alec. And this advertisement is not a commitment to lend or extend credit. Mortgage CS is an equal housing opportunity mortgage broker. All loans are subject to credit approval. Certain restrictions may apply, and the company NMLS ID number 1464766. You can visit mortgagecs.com for more information, or check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY to get started. All right, guys, want to give a special shout out. Broad, my apologies. Since you mentioned in the chat you live in Norway, or like in Norway or Alaska, I should say. The pronunciation, I believe, is fjord. So hopefully I'm saying that correctly now. My apologies. I couldn't read it well on our screen here. And then also Spiral Out. Happy to have you guys here. Barbara, Jillian, Provolone, John.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Hit that thumbs up button. We do things a little bit differently on the Union Show. I know, Broad, it seems like this is our first time connecting with you live on the show. And Spiral Out, I know you're learning about soccer. We do things differently here. We're twice a week. We also, just a quick, if this is like a school announcement, I guess it's becoming, we are actually switching our show to Monday at 3:30. So I know there's questions about the subscribers, the comments, maybe even the timing for anybody that's listening back on podcast platforms. We're tweaking to Mondays because we want to make sure we can get you guys up-to-date information, especially with a lot of games this season, JP, happening on Saturdays and Sundays. So it'll be Mondays and Thursdays every week, 3:30 for the most part, unless we have to tweak here and there. So I'm excited because this group so far has been special to watch. Rainiel, nice to have you here too.
Hey, what's up, Rainiel?
What's up? What's up? Hit that thumbs up button. Listen, I hope you guys, like Spiral is saying, are all planning to watch Saturday, the home opener, whether in person or on TV, on the MLS. You got to get that subscription going to be able to watch some more soccer.
Apple TV
This
Plus.
group has a lot that we can continue to unpack. And we talked about on the attacking side, the movement. We talked about the midfield. Before we bring on our special guest, Alex from out of Chicago, who's going to help us preview the Fire, I feel like we need to button up the final thoughts on game number one. Defensively, I will say, I actually did have a couple concerns on the defensive side. Listen, Saprissa, very talented club. Lots of attacking firepower there, and I knew they were going to test the Union's back line. And I'm actually glad, to be honest, that the Union from game one got that test, because I feel like as a team, it allows you from the beginning to see what you've got. There's no smoke and mirrors. All right, thrown right into the fire, figure it out, make adjustments. It's a very experience, I should say, group. The leadership of this team comes from Andre Blake through the back line. Of course, no Jack Elliott, no Olivier Mbizo. We are not sure what's happening with Jack Elliott as of this moment, as we're having this conversation. Of course, Jim should be speaking on it in the press conference on Friday. So hopefully we will find out shortly in the next 24 hours what's going on. Our guess is that he took a knock probably. But either way, what I liked about this is you see that next player up mentality. Nate Harriel, fantastic on the outside back, opposite of Kai Wagner. And then Damian Lowe and Jacob Glesson is fantastic at holding down the back four. That this is why this team has the strength of their group coming from the back line, where you can seamlessly plug in another center back in Damian Lowe. We've seen him continue to progress. They played well. On the other side, unfortunately, I did feel like defensively, as a unit, not just the back four, because I actually think it was more on the middies, did not do a great job matching up with Saprissa on the defensive side. There were a number of plays, including the second goal they scored, the near chance they had that went wide, and a couple other chances that I saw where there were players just unmarked, wide open, in the middle, in goal-scoring position, and getting caught in between where Damian and Jacob were holding down the back line. The back four were marked up, but the middies weren't organizing quick enough. And so it was kind of, I remember a specific time, Damian was caught in between of like, wait, do I step and leave my player wide open? Do I hold? And now a shot from distance happened. And that's actually how one of the goals happened. Yeah. So I would have definitely liked to see a better job matching up defensively by the whole team, doing a good job transitioning, getting forward. That was a game plan, knowing that Saprissa runs numbers at you. The Union were prepared for that. But I don't know that defensively they were fully prepared enough, because I would like to see them do better. And I noticed that at the end of last season, I remember talking about this in the playoffs with them, that I saw carry over again, game one.
Yeah, no, there was a couple, especially like it was weird. It was like the beginning parts of the first half and the end parts of the second half where like the team defense kind of, it was just uncharacteristic. And a lot of it was just chemistry, it was communication. And that's why I'm not worried. I think that the more that they will play, the less you'll see some of those mistakes. But it's bound to happen in CONCACAF in the type of environment when you're talking about the weather and just the atmosphere in general. But no, I'm with you. There was a couple instances. I mean, even like on the first corner kick for Saprissa, Martinez, I don't know what he was doing trying to track down that ball, but he couldn't clear it. Hernandez, if he would have hit that ball better, that would have been the opening goal. There was a lot of instances like that, but I thought overall, I mean, I did still see some nice plays from Glesnes and Lowe, but you got to play that full 90 minutes. You know, the Taylor goal in that second half. I mean, you can't just have a winger just, come inside like Carlos Vela and get that shot off. He was unscathed. Like those are the type of things that definitely cannot happen. And, coming back into leg 2 here next week, obviously we'll dive more deeper into it next week, but you got to keep that foot on that gas pedal. And that's something that we're talking about. We talked about it on Tuesday. This is not a 90-minute game. This is a 180-minute game because of these 2 games that you were playing. And look, the attack-wise, that was great. We saw a lot of good stuff, but you can't rely on Carranza to get a hat trick every game.
Exactly.
We didn't talk about it, but Renee, Ua did not look good at all. He looked out of shape. It looked a little bit like last year's. And so, Carranza, it was great that you got the hat trick, but you're going to need that contributions from other players as well. And especially, we always talk about it. We do expect that from Ua to give us that too. But also, kind of sticking on the attack, the forwards, I'm questioning a little bit what is the depth now, because if you noticed, first off, your boy Marcus Anderson got on the pitch the second half.
Did.
Shouts to Marcus. But in turn, Chris Donovan came before that. Ty Barribo didn't come out. So apparently Ty now is dropped down in the depth chart with the forwards. So that's something I want to see if Jim answers tomorrow. But that was something that I really did notice. Happy to see Marcus Anderson there, but also like, all right, what's up with Ty then?
Yeah, exactly. And he's another one that keeps picking up injuries and has had, I think, fitness issues as well because he's been injured. I know, obviously, as you talk about that depth and just looking at the attack, Joaquin Torres, who we knew and had talked previously about his future with the club. Well, he's been loaned to Club Deportivo Universidad Católica. That was announced officially today. We already knew that news before today, but that was announced officially today. The loan is happening with an option to purchase. So he's going to get a chance to go play there in 2024, which overall in the offense makes you just wonder what is going on. What is the game plan outside of, look, we said this many times, outside of Julian, outside of even Daniel and Quinn, who's playing well, who's that other forward? Is it going to be, if Ua cannot step up, you got to, I would imagine maybe Marcus Anderson, Chris Donovan's going to be working to split that time. I agree with Jillian. I know in the chat you're saying you would have liked to see the Union do a better job of not giving up that goal at the end. Listen, both goals they gave up, of course, the first one, very uncharacteristic. The second one, a late goal where you get caught flat. These are the types of things that early in the season you expect. I know Jim was talking about it as well of, look, we would, of course, rather be up 3-1 going into leg 2, which makes the aggregate a lot easier versus a 3-2 score. But I can at least chop that up to early game one, maybe some fitness, maybe, you're just not ready to put together a full 90 versus Saprissa, who is. But there are, as you mentioned, more concerning elements. I don't like how they gave up that goal, I think is more concerning, because that was actually one of those plays where they weren't matched up defensively. And then someone like Ua, who, he just has to find his way to, he has to find a way to make his presence more known. Like Daniel Gazdag, I think, what we're going to get from him is exactly what we saw on Tuesday. He's going to just drift in and out. He's going to link play. He's going to help combine. He's not going to make the runs. Quinn Sullivan's going to make the runs. He's going to look to try things. He's going to be more aggressive. Julian's going to be the finisher. He's going to lurk in and out, play off the back shoulder, make those final runs so he can finish. Ua, what is your role? What is it that are you going to be able to help hold balls up? Are you going to be able to link play as a target? Are you going to be able to maybe spin off defenders and make runs in behind? I don't know. I feel like we've been talking about this a lot, but game one, and you even thought he wasn't going to start because he, of course, was later to preseason around his green card delay, but he got to start and didn't look so hot.
Got what you expected. I mean, this is a guy who came in late because of the visa issues. I mean, there's only so much you can do like by yourself to try to get in shape. Like it's not the same when you're out there training with the team. So it is definitely a big difference. But Renee, like in that first half, like those opportunities that Carranza was getting in the second half, Ua was getting those in the first half.
He slipped and fell,
or he looked too slow, or the touch was just off. And those are all things that you can kind of calculate to him just not having a full preseason here to prepare. So I'm listen, it's just right now it sucks because the last taste of Ua we have was a bad playoff game against Cincinnati and just not a great finish to the end of 2023. So in 2024, the expectation for Ua is like the seat's getting a little bit hot for him. We're getting restless. We're waiting for him to break out, be that 20 to 30 goal scorer. I know that's a lot, but I think that was what we were kind of expecting here, for him to be that main guy as far as scoring goes. And we did kind of see that in 22. But we will see. I'm curious to see what Jim decides to go with Saturday, considering that next Tuesday you got another match against Saprissa. But yeah, I mean, Gazdag, obviously that was a good first game, but the question is still, now that Torres is now with Católica, who's the backup 10? Yeah. Like, Gazdag's out. Like, what are you going to run? Quinn. Jeremy Raffagnello? Quinn.
Quinn could be the backup 10.
Quinn, and you know what? Quinn deserving, especially after what you saw.
You can slot Jesus Bueno out wide and bump Quinn up. That's, to me, what makes the most sense.
Yeah, and I'm assuming if Jim would roll with that as well, because I think that's the one that would make the most sense if you're talking about a backup 10. But there's some question marks that we're going to have to figure out here within the next couple of days.
And you know what also always makes sense? That's the spot to buy your Game Time tickets. Over on the Game Time app, you can download the app today. And over at the Game Time app, they do a good job of providing you options where you can easily browse through to see tickets for games, concerts, comedy shows, any types of events, entertainment. Over the Game Time app, when you download it today, if you use the code PHOY, you can also get $20 off of your purchase. And with that code, you get a chance to save because they already have great ticket prices, low prices. They will match the lowest prices that are out there for you. Then with that PHOY code, PHLY, you get $20 off. And then on top of that, the Game Time app allows you to be able to see where you're going to be seated with your friends to watch that game, or singing along in the concert, or laughing until you cry at the comedy show. And then when you show up, your tickets will be right on your phone, easy to scan, easy to join in and have the fun. So download the Game Time app, and one more time, that code on your screen. And for those listening on our podcast platforms, code PHLY gets you $20 off.
And with all these talks about games, well, if you're heading down to the tailgate, let me give you a good option for some food, because you're going to get hungry at that tailgate. Let me talk to you about our sponsors. That is Bagels & Co., ladies and gentlemen. Brooklyn-style bagels, but ladies and gentlemen, of course, they are made with that Philly love. And with these inflation issues that we're going through today in 2024, why not go with Bagels & Co.? Because of the portion sizes, we're talking huge bagels with a large variety of different types of bagels, 15 to 20 different types, especially. They always got you hooked up with the different holidays, especially with St. Patty's Day right around the corner. And they have a large selection of cream cheeses. We have 30 different types of cream cheeses and schmears to select from as well. And they are, more importantly, affordable, ladies and gentlemen. Again, inflation is a real thing here in 2024. So what are you waiting for? Find your local Bagels & Co. right now at www.thebagelsandco.com/store locator to find the nearest Bagels & Co. to you. Check it out. Get it for your next tailgate or for your next brunch you got there. So check it out, Again, www.thebagelsandco.com/store locator. And thank you again to our friends over at Bagels & Co.
All right. Well, we may have to wait to see what's UA's role is with the Philadelphia Union, but we don't have to wait to hear about this game this upcoming weekend because we've got our very own from CHGO Fire joining us now to help preview Saturday's matchup to open up MLS play. Our very own Alex Campbell. Welcome, Alex. Nice to have you here. I'm curious to know your initial thoughts on this matchup. Of course, it is the season opener, home opener for the Union at Subaru Park, which should be a great crowd and great turnout. What are your initial thoughts about this matchup in terms of what you expect? Fire Union Game 1. Good. Oh.
Yeah, if you
go.
guys can hear me, I cannot hear you. My feed, I heard you guys for the first few seconds, and then I was put on mute, I believe. So if you can hear me, I cannot hear you guys.
Okay, we'll try this one more time. Can you hear us now?
Oh, there we go.
Okay, good. It's like the commercial back in the day. Can you hear me now? Good. So Alex, what's up, man? We're excited to have you here. Glad you've been able to join us to preview the matchup on Saturday. What are your initial thoughts about how this matchup should go down? Obviously, game 1 for both teams of MLS play officially. What are your thoughts about how the Fire have been looking so far in the preseason portions coming in against a Union team that just had a CONCACAF game on Tuesday?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. Really happy to be here and return the favor from JP yesterday on our show. Yeah, it's really hard to say due to the way MLS worked things out. Only 2 of the Fire's 4 or 5 preseason matches were able to be viewed online, so that limits how much you can really know. And of course, none of the ones that we were able to watch involved Kellyn Acosta, who was training with the team but did not get to play with them until their final friendly against Portland over last weekend. And of course, Hugo Kuipers, the new designated player number 9, was not available for preseason at all. So it's really hard to say what this team is going to look like, especially given that head coach Frank Klopas is more of a vibes guy than he is a very specific tactics guy. So I think Fire fans in general aren't really sure what we're going to see Saturday. It's believed Acosta is going to play. As for Kuipers, who knows? He'll have had a few days of training under his belt by then, but tough to say. I think the bigger question is, how are the Union going to look coming off a midweek trip down to Costa Rica that obviously expended a whole bunch of energy for better and for worse as they got that 3-2 win. So I think it's a lot of unknowns going to this weekend. What are the Fire going to look like? Is it going to be anything different than last year? And what Union team do we see? Does Jim Curtin rotate at all? Do guys look tired? I think there's just so many unknowns for Saturday's match.
Absolutely. Yeah. Alex, what's going on? Long time no talk, brother. It's good seeing you, man. Appreciate you coming in here. But so obviously that's the $1 million question. That was one of the big concerns after last year with Leagues Cup and all just the different tournaments and competition we had to play last year. Fatigue was an issue. So we're going to figure that out, I guess, here early on in the season with this hectic schedule. But, Alex, we kind of talked about it a little bit yesterday when we were on SGO Fire. But look, for the Chicago Fire, you guys are no strangers to spending money. You guys have dished out the dough, something we kind of wish did a little more here in Philly. But listen, the difference is, though, like, we don't spend a lot of money, but we succeed on the pitch. You guys have spent a lot of money, hasn't succeeded as much. You guys spent a lot of money again this past offseason. So, Alex, what's the difference this time? Why is it going to be different now that you guys have spent that dough?
I think that's the big question, because when you look at the way a lot of people have talked about this team in the offseason and thought about their projections for this season, the general comment is these moves all seem smart, but they're being made by the same front office that has made some not very smart moves, which sporting director Georg Heitz even said, which came as a bit of a surprise in the introductory press conference the other day for Hugo Kuipers and Kellyn Acosta. He said that, yeah, I've made mistakes and those have been costly, and it's taken time for us to kind of get away from those. So it's hard, I think even Heitz would say, to have anybody's open trust at this point, given the type of lack of success really that the team have had. But I mean, I think the encouragement you can take is that this offseason could not have gone much better. They somehow got out of Jairo Torres' contract, arguably the worst designated player in MLS history. There's, in terms of money spent and lack of impact, he did not have a single goal nor assist in his year and a half as a member of that team. Spent as much time out injured as he did playing. But you look at a guy like Hugo Kuipers. This is a guy who won the Belgian Golden Boot last season. Was a little slower so far this year, but underlying numbers still good. Kellen Acosta, USMNT peripheral player, but MLS veteran. You look at what they did at the fullback spots with Andrew Gutman coming back home, Chase Gasper is depth. Alan Aragoni comes in from Lugano, the sister club in Switzerland. There's a lot of things that just make sense, and they're the sort of moves that the Fire just didn't make before. It does feel like, though, as much as all of this makes sense, it is a bit of a Hail Mary, because if this is another offseason of new players who do not make a discernible impact on the pitch, you can't imagine ownership is going to be willing to chip in a lot more money, especially not after they just spent $12 million on Kuipers. And the front office, Georg Heitz, the sporting director, and his assistant Sebastian Pelzer were given contract extensions this offseason. It's not just that they're back. So this team, whether I don't know what the goal is, whether it's make the playoffs, have a home playoff game, whatever the goal is, if this season looks a lot like last year, you're going to struggle to get ownership or fans to really have any patience left.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, bottom of the conference, bottom of the league in a number of, not only standings-wise, but a number of different categories and areas. As you mentioned, the Fire had a number of departures this offseason, including Jairo Torres, a few other names across the roster, and then bringing in someone like Hugo, bringing in Kellen as well. You mentioned there's a lot of unknowns. You don't know what this group's going to look like. But what do you anticipate? Because right now, that's all it seems like we've got to go off of. Of course, the Fire did have some preseason games, but as you mentioned, and as we've complained about, it's very difficult to be able to watch preseason games and get a good gauge on what the guys look like ahead of their official MLS play. What is it about this group that you're anticipating? Obviously, they're a hungry team. They're drastically wanting to be better in league play. Sometimes that in itself is enough to help a team become more competitive and surprise some teams. What is it that you anticipate about their style of play and that you can kind of piece together as to how they might look Saturday?
I think the one thing fans can expect this season, and anybody watching the Fire, is a team. I don't want to necessarily say they're going to be a better attacking team, but they're going to be a team more interested in attacking more than they were last year. Just the last couple of years, really, a whole lot of 4-4-2, dropping deep in defense, and then trying to hit long balls on the counter, and it never really worked. Not enough touches on the ball for guys like Xherdan Shaqiri and young up-and-comer Brian Gutierrez. So I think what to watch is this team the year that Brian Gutierrez, who's pushing to make the Olympic team for the U.S. men, is this the year he takes a big step forward? Is the addition of someone like Kuipers the sort of thing that can get the best out of Xherdan Shaqiri, who, again, if you want to talk about MLS contracts that have not gone well, $8.5 million per year for Shaqiri is arguably not been a particularly beneficial investment. But Chris Mueller's coming back off a season-long injury last year. What does his return and impact look like? So I think that's really the thing. I think, and the Fire showed this at the beginning of last year, and I'd argue their personnel defensively has gotten better. If they want to bunker and try to nil-nil you, like, they can do that. But that's not what anybody wants to see. That's not what this team wants to be. It's not what Frank Klopas wants this team to be. So, yeah, again, it's hard to say, given that, again, I would be shocked if Hugo Kuipers is starting on Saturday. It would be fun, but I think that's much more likely a 20, 30 minutes off the bench kind of situation for him this weekend, and then full go at home next Saturday against Cincinnati. But I think that's the biggest thing is Frank Klopas, he was a striker in his career. He's had a full offseason now as the head coach. He is fully steering the ship. I'd assume his biggest imprint is this team is going to do more, or at least try to do more going forward, because it felt for long stretches last year like they just, not only were they not very good at attacking, they weren't particularly interested in doing it either.
Yikes.
I guess I have to ask this question for fun here. So what's the worst Chicago contract, Shaqiri or Seth Jones?
Oh, God.
So I think Shaqiri's an overpay. Like, there's no doubt about it. He is, in terms of what he has produced in MLS, $8.5 million is too much. However, I still think no, the worst contract decision is actually probably extending Kasper Shabilko an extra year. No offense to everybody in Philly, but at some point he was traded from Philly to Chicago, had his contract intact, and at some point after they knew he had taken back problems had flared up, he was given an extra year, which required them to use the buyout on him to send into Lugano. So in terms of like decisions that at the time they were made the least amount of sense, it's got to be Shabilko. But if it's Shaqiri or Jairo Torres, I think it's just got to be Jairo, because even though Shaqiri has not produced at the level you'd want, he has at least produced. He has done some things. He has at times been a net positive for the Fire, and Jairo Torres was never a net positive at any point for the Fire. And I don't think that's all his fault. He came in off the back of playing a crazy number of minutes in his last season at Atlas when they won their first title in forever in Liga MX. But no, I mean, the Jairo Torres designated player signing, that's an all-time whiff.
Right. So on a serious note, though, Alex, so I don't think you guys will struggle to score, but I feel like you guys are going to struggle defending. What is the word out? Like, how are you guys feeling about the Chicago defense in 24?
That's kind of the open question, that if the Fire do become a more attacking team, what are they sacrificing on the other end? It's hard to know. They've signed Tobias Sahlqvist, a veteran center back. I think he's 28 years old, from Denmark, where he played for Silkeborg IF, which is his hometown club. He's been a mainstay there a very long time. Again, he's expected to partner German veteran at the heart of the defense. Andrew Gutman on the left, you kind of know what you're going to get. He's, I think everybody would agree in Chicago, an upgrade on Miguel Navarro, who just, his attacking output wasn't consistent enough, and defensively he was far too prone to errors. Actually, the last 2 seasons in a row, he has given away a penalty on decision day that put the nail in the Fire's playoff coffin. So hopefully that streak comes to an end. The real question mark is Alan Aragoni, who the new presumed starting right back from Lugano. It's a bit of a logjam at that position right now. Arnaud Souquet came in, Ligue 1 in France, veteran at the beginning of last year. Halfway through the season, he had been benched for Jonathan Dean, who was signed from USL Championship Birmingham City and not expected to be a big contributor. In the second half of the season, he was the starting right back. Souquet is still on the roster. Aragoni is expected to start. The other thing that's expected to be a big plus is Kellen Acosta, in whatever role he is expected to play, or asked to play, I should say, is going to provide that midfield much more steel than they had last year. They were just far too easy to play through. So I think the Fire's defensive concerns were almost more about the midfield than they are about the defense. And so I think whether he's playing as an out-and-out 6 or more as an 8, Kellen Acosta should massively help them be a better transition defense team.
All right. Well, Alex, appreciate you taking time to join us. I'm tempted to ask, and I'm curious. I don't even know if you'll have an answer to this, but I'm gonna throw it out there anyways, because why not? What are your predictions about this game? This is my final question for you. I know you guys have talked about it on your show. We've obviously been talking about it on our show. You're probably going to have a similar answer to the one that I've had, so I'm interested to see if we're on the same page. What are some maybe a score prediction as to how you see this game going Saturday?
I think both teams. All I'll say is I think both teams are going to score in this game. I think we're going to see, regardless of the team Philly puts out, I think it's expected that they are going to be leggy. When we hit that 60-minute, 70-minute mark, there's going to be some jet lag and some tiredness kicking in there. As for a score, I mean, my gut says something along the lines of 2-1 Philly, but I could also see a 2-2, a 3-2. I think, given the Fire's eagerness, I mean, the guys have talked so much about they just want to get out there. They're looking forward to the games. They want to show what they think they can do. I think this game is going to be probably Philly dominant early. But as the game goes on, I think the Fire claw back into it. So I'll be a little optimistic then, I guess. I think the Fire go on the road and get a 2-2 draw in a game that both teams are going to have positives to say, but also plenty of negatives, as Philly gets set to host Saprissa back at your guys' home stomping grounds there at Subaru Park for the reverse leg of that fixture. So, yeah, I think the Fire grind out a draw by taking advantage of Philly struggling to get through the 90 minutes near the end.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that actually kind of makes sense. I could see that happening too. So we appreciate you, Alex, for carving time out of your Thursday to join us here on the show. Definitely appreciate the insight you've been able to share on what's going on in Chicago. It'll be a very interesting MLS opener for both squads this Saturday, 7:30 p.m. And we'll see what happens. We'll see if that prediction pans out correctly or incorrectly. So thanks again, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. Renee, JP, thank you guys so much. Keep up the great work, and we'll talk again down the road when our teams face off again.
Yeah, you as well. You
Sounds
as
good,
well.
brother.
Honestly, as Alex was talking, there's a lot of things I took from that. One, Kasper Shabilko, which it's a shame. As of course, if you guys haven't officially heard the news, he was loaned to SC Lugano not too long ago, actually last week, but hasn't been a great situation and marriage there between Shabilko and the Fire. So that fire has been put out. But for this upcoming weekend, this is a team where you really don't know what to expect. And I feel like in soccer, that's always a dangerous opponent because soccer is anybody's game.
Yeah.
Listen, it's such a sport where you're able to pack it in or, depending on the weather, depending on all these different factors where you don't always have to be the better team. You just have to be the team that capitalizes on more chances that day. And I could see a team like the Fire, exactly as Alex was mentioning, as he was talking about, I was like, oh, in my brain, I'm like, oh yeah, I've been in those games. I've seen those games where the Union come out, better team, dominant team. If they don't put away their chances and they allow this game to linger, the Fire starts getting some confidence, some momentum, some mojo jojo, and they start picking things up, and who knows? So it is interesting, JP, because it's a quick turnaround from Tuesday to Saturday playing in Costa Rica, whereas they are fresh coming into their first game and eager, as Alex was mentioning.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I'm curious what the rotation will look like. I think that's the most important part for me to see what happens on Saturday because, again, yeah, you may put your best lineup out there, but are they going to be good enough for next Tuesday?
Right.
So that's what I'm definitely be looking for. But the Chicago one's interesting to start off the season. I do think that with the experience that we have, the fact that we have some soccer already played, some important soccer we just played on Tuesday night, I think that's going to be enough. And then, of course, the most important part, you're going to be at the Sub. You're going to have that crowd right behind you. I know it's probably not going to be, more likely will not be 19,000, let's be real. But even if you get 16,000, 15,000, that's still a good crowd. They'll still be loud enough. And it's going to be cold. But I just think in general, because we just talked, Chicago is integrating a lot of new pieces. So there's always going to be some dysfunction when you're putting in new pieces into a team. So I think that the Union, the fact that the one thing we kill them running it back, that may help them in the early part of this season here.
Yeah, you have two completely opposite teams. You have Chicago, who has so much news, so much chaos, and actually, even as Alex was talking through the different issues with their contracts and pricing and things. That's something you don't have to worry about that with the Union. They're not overspending for anybody. It's a complete opposite. So completely different ends of the spectrum. And that also translates on the pitch when you have a team like Chicago who's trying to fix it all and figure it all out, whereas the Union are just picking up where they left off. So it is going to be exciting. As you mentioned, the X factor of being at Subaru Park. I know, Travman, you're asking about going to the home opener. Jillian, you will be there in the River End. We'll be pumping out some content for you guys on Saturday as well. We will not be down physically in person at the game, but we'll be tuning in and pumping out some content you can stay tuned for. Jack Elliott's question mark. We don't know if he's... We're going to try, and we were hitting on that a little bit earlier. I think actually Saturday is a game I am interested to see between the presser tomorrow and how they line up Saturday, a little bit more about what's going on with Jack. And if you get maybe Mbaizo some minutes, maybe you get someone like Marcus more minutes. If Jack is able to play, I noticed he was playing a lot more in the early parts of the preseason game, and I wonder if it was fitness. If you remember, Jim was mentioning there were some guys that were playing more. Their fitness wasn't where it should have been. And I felt like Jack, maybe that's why he was getting more minutes out of the center backs. And who knows, maybe he did pick something up that's kept him from being able to be 100%. And they felt Damian was the better pick. But it's all speculation that we've got to go on for now until we officially hear from Jim tomorrow.
I think that we'll find out more, but I think maybe Jim's just being a little precautious, which is definitely smart to do. And that's why you got a Damian Lowe there too. Yeah. But the one thing I do want to see and what I'm curious about, because I do feel like, you may see Elliott star over a Lowe, you may see Mbaizo star over Harriel, but like the one key one is Ua. Like, what do you do with Ua? Like, it wasn't
what do you do with Ua?
Yeah, well, it wasn't a good showing on Tuesday. No. Obviously, you're gonna need bodies, especially up top for the next game on next Tuesday. So, like, what do you do? Do you start him? Do you have him come off the bench? That's the one I'm like tiptoeing. Like, what do you do for Jim? The
highest paid player on this team.
It's tough.
Yeah,
tough decision, but you got to manage that correctly. You need him to get that confidence now, but also it didn't look great on Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, to have one of your top paid players. And when you pay somebody that much, you're investing in them, expecting them to be one of your best players, one of your impact players. And he didn't start off the season great, honestly. Preseason, from what I could see in that final preseason match, he was okay. I thought it was. I saw more from him in preseason, I will say, than I definitely did in Tuesday's game. But it's so early in the season, and you have to balance shaking things up, building confidence, keeping guys fresh, getting them rolling. There's so many different aspects to the early parts of the season. It's a lot to juggle, but that's where Jim Curtin's got that handled.
And a little bit of a
hopefully.
tidbit.
Hopefully.
Last year, after the Alianza game,
our
first one, we played Chicago. This time around, our first Champions Cup game, we're playing Chicago. It did end up in a win. That was Joaquin Torres' lone goal as a Union, but ironically enough. So this is going to be our first game.
Start off strong.
There you go. You go. Should be fun.
Well, hopefully it's the same thing. It'll be a great game. The weather will be a little chilly, but at least it shouldn't be rainy and windy as much as it was in Costa Rica.
Any of those NFL playoff fans, guys, it's gonna be cold. You don't need to be shirtless. I don't care how many Coors Lights you had on that night. Please just wear a hoodie at least for us, please. At least something.
If they're not, maybe they're not cold.
Oh, that's crazy. You have to be cold. I don't care how much whiskey you had in your system.
I don't know though. That liquor jacket is very thick. Because I've been there, and when you have enough in you, you don't feel anything. You're just like, let's do this. Let me go cheer. Let me paint my chest and go cheer. Hey, whatever works, whatever floats your boat, whatever rocks your socks. JP, you ever heard that one?
No, I have not. Renee's always got us here.
I think
here we go, Tyler. Here we go.
Have you heard that?
Not that one. No.
Float your boat. Have you heard float your boat?
If I know float your boat.
I think I low-key made up.
I'm a big fan of whatever helps you sleep at night. That's my good one
too. That's a solid one too. It's my inner old woman that has these random jokes that are not funny, or these random lines.
I think Jamie's don't yuck the yum.
Yeah.
Like if you never heard that one? Don't yuck my yum.
Yuck my
it's
yum.
like saying if I say I like something and you say, oh, that's stupid, I would say, oh, you don't yuck my yum or something like that.
Next time I see James, I'm gonna be like, James, don't yuck my yum.
It sounds. The more you say it, it sounds more and more ridiculous.
It is pretty ridiculous. It is pretty ridiculous. Yeah. But yes, Trapman saying Keystone's Ultras are not listening to you. They will be shirtless.
We need them to be the Keystone State Ultras. So whatever they got to do, because
whatever
we need
works.
that for
Again,
140.
whatever floats your boat, whatever rocks your socks. There you go.
They might not be wearing socks either, so we don't know.
Oh, good Lord. I'm just, I'm here to educate you guys on way more than just soccer. I'm here to provide some other insight into great sayings. When you say that, some of them are like, what? Where'd you hear that cool saying from? Like,
PHOI Union.
PHOI Union.
So subscribe.
You heard it first here, guys. There you go. All right. Well, it's not a millennial saying, though. Jillian, you're saying teaching middle school. I'm sure that's very eye-opening. Don't say that around middle schoolers because they will definitely not know that at all. But yeah, I can only imagine it gets even worse when you get younger. The things that these kids these days are saying, I'm like, wow, I feel super old. Put me in a senior citizen home now because y'all are aging me fast.
Renee's like, early bird special, Jeopardy, bedtime by 8.
I'm ready. Oh yeah. Oh, see, I like my early bedtime. The meals are there. I'll eat some. What's a big senior citizen thing? Oatmeal and whatever else. Sign me up. Casserole, I'll take the oatmeal. All right, well, hopefully this weekend will not age us and give us gray hairs watching the Union Saturday. I think it's going to be a good day. I'm trying to continue. Look, if you've noticed, JP and Tyler, I've been the driver of the optimism train. Riding in on the optimism, car, actually. I don't know why I did train and then I did car motion. Whatever, it's Thursday. It's fine. Everything's fine. It's National Margarita Day. We're days away from the first game at Subaru Park. What else is out there? It's another Friday. It's our final Friday of February.
That's crazy.
Wild. I'm just trying to give you all the nuggets of what the importance of today is. So for us here at PHOI Union, we are closer and closer to that home opener. I hope you guys have a great time down at Subaru Park. Pack the park. Make sure you're loud. Make sure you're excited. You're cheering wherever you're watching from. Let's enjoy this game. It's the first MLS game of many, and hopefully it's an exciting one. So for Tyler, JP, myself, Renee, we'll see you guys on Monday Fun Day, 3:30 p.m. to recap all the action this weekend and much more back here on PHOI Union Podcast. See ya.
See you guys.
We all silly like the mayor.